back to Both Sides Book Club with yours truly, Catie
and Debbie.
So anyway, we're here chatting about another great book. But before we get into it, what was your highlight of the last month and your low light of the last month?
Low light, easy.
What?
Rain.
Oh,
Rain. Guess what? It's raining.
I know.
Guess what? It's
I
raining.
know.
It hasn't stopped. So I'm so over it. My entire house is mouldy and can it just stop, please?
Yes, agree. That is also my low point. I'm so over parenting in this rain. I've run out of activities hardcore. So I am hoping for some sun. And your highlight. We need a highlight.
My highlight has been having sleepovers with Pip.
Oh, yes. That has also been my highlight. That's also my highlight.
Oh, there you go. It's a win-win.
So Mum had Pippi for the first time overnight the other week, and Jay and I got to go out on a date night to Sydney. So not a close date night. We went big or go home. So that was really nice.
Yeah.
Oh, well, anyway. Thanks, Mum.
Thank you.
So let's crack on. So what book were we reading this month?
Okay, so our book for this month is Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. Now, this book has only been out for a little while. It was published, I think, in April, but already it is just going gangbusters all across the world. The reviews are amazing. It's been optioned for TV, and it's hilarious. I laughed. I loved this book. So if you haven't had a chance to read it yet, or you've forgotten what it's about, it's set in the 1960s in California, and it's the story of Elizabeth Zott, who is a chemist, a scientist who is a single mother of a 5-year-old daughter called Mad. And she becomes the host of a cooking show on TV called Supper at 6. And yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say about it, actually.
Yeah, well, it's
Because
I feel like if you liked the books like The Rosie Project or
Where'd You Go, Bernadette?
Yeah, you would have really liked this book. It's funny, but also, like all of our books, it's got themes.
It's empowering, and it's all about the power of women and the power of friendship. And just getting on and
standing up for yourself.
Yeah, in the world.
It was amazing. And we are very excited because we have Bonnie joining us in just a second. Hi, Bonnie. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited.
Welcome to Both Sides Book Club.
Thank you.
We're thrilled to have you here, and I just start off with saying that your book made me laugh in so many little quirky, loud, tiny, different ways. It was really, really a joy to read. So thank you so much for writing it.
I snorted.
Oh, I like that. Well, thank you.
My partner kept going, "What are you doing?" And I was just snorting.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you for telling me that. Well, you never know how it's going to land. So,
well, you hit the nail absolutely on the head. You just got it perfectly.
We actually had one of our book club members write into us saying that your book was what kickstarted them back into reading again, that it was the exact book that they needed to like really grip their teeth in and want to keep reading. So, I think that's always a win for an author. If they pick up your book after not reading for ages and then go, fall in love with reading again, I always think that's a big compliment.
Oh God, that's the hugest compliment I've ever gotten. I think that's amazing. I'm thrilled to hear it. Trying to write another one.
Yeah, totally.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Amazing, Bonnie.
Yeah, right.
So we understand the catalyst for your novel came from an experience you had in work. So do you want to start off with just telling us a little bit about yourself, what experience in work that was?
Okay. Well, I've been a copywriter, creative director for a long time now. And I was sitting in a meeting, a technology meeting, Bay Area sort of thing, big technology companies there. And I was the only woman in the room. I was presenting my ideas for a campaign and no one really said anything.
Yeah.
And then, a few minutes later, one of the men represented my ideas as if they were his own. And everyone said, those are great. I mean, brilliant. Yeah. It wasn't the first time this has happened to me, but I complained and really, the meeting just kept going on. So when I went back to my desk, I was in such a bad mood. And instead of working, I wrote the first chapter of Lessons in Chemistry. But, I know.
It just spewed out of you.
Constructive anger.
Yeah.
I know. So it worked out great in the long run. But that day, I was in a pretty bad mood.
I imagine. When, if you don't mind me asking, how long ago was this experience?
That's like now that I think about it, was probably 10 years ago or so, maybe. Because the book took me 5 years to write, and then it was like and then it takes, like 2.5 years or 2 years. You have to get an agent, and it's 18 months of publishing. Slow. Yeah. It takes forever. Yeah. But it was about 10 years ago. And the hilarious thing was, I was just doing a reading in Seattle, and somebody in the audience came up to me yesterday. After that reading, and he said, "I know what meeting that was."
Oh, really?
Yeah. Anyway. Oh well. That's how it all started.
But it happens so often, doesn't it? It really does happen so often that you say something and it's ignored, and then somebody else just kind of like claims it. And if you say anything, it's, well, don't make a fuss.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's. I would like to, if we're going to jump straight into it, I would like to say that I think we do have to acknowledge that, times have certainly changed, and that they are improving and they are getting better.
Yes.
Definitely in women's history, there has been a lot of, don't give your ideas, let the males dominate that world. So maybe you can give us a little bit more insight as to why you did set the novel in the 1960s. Maybe does that sort of the two marry well together, perhaps?
Yes, and that's what you just said is exactly why I set it in the 60s, because at that day I needed some reassurance that we had actually moved forward as women, that we had overcome some really huge obstacles, and that things weren't as bad as I thought they were. And indeed, things have gotten much, much better. And, it's not perfect though.
Correct.
And it's been really interesting. I'll say it's been really interesting with this book out, how many women around the world I've heard from, especially women scientists, saying that the lab that I've described in Elizabeth Zott's time is still the same lab they're working in.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's equally true of careers like medicine. With female aspiring surgeons or anesthetists or going into any kind of medical specialty, there's still very much that kind of patriarchal hierarchy.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. In fact, somebody was just saying to me, a male doctor was just saying, well, actually in medicine now it's 50% women in terms of doctor care. And I said, but how many of those women are OBGYN or family doctors, and how many are surgeons?
Yes.
And how hard is it for a woman to become a surgeon? And he said, okay, good point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah. How important is it for you to see more women in roles like in STEM roles?
I think it's super important. And the biggest reason is because our bodies are a little bit different, and we really need women who understand our bodies, devising medicines for us and cures for us. And so often women's diseases and things like that are very low on the hierarchy of what gets funded. So I do think we need more women in STEM. I mean, we can see it already. The men have been in STEM forever. We have some really serious problems in the world. I think if we had some new perspectives, it would dramatically change and we would progress a little faster.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a huge push. I mean, I don't know if there is in the States, but certainly in Australia, there's a huge push in both primary and high school to encourage girls to study those STEM subjects. So that they're not boys only. That it is a realistic and a desirable pathway for girls.
Yeah. And, I just got this great direct message from a 15-year-old girl who said that she'd always wanted to be a scientist, but even now today that the boys were making it really hard for her in class, and that she'd read the book and that she decided that she wasn't going to let the boys shove her around and she was going to be a scientist.
Fantastic.
And more specifically, she decided to go into chemistry.
Fantastic! That's brilliant.
And you thought my compliment was a good compliment. So basically what we're saying is, Bonnie, you're going to run for Prime Minister. Or
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine? Oh, my God. Anyway, no, it's really been interesting, though, to hear from women and hear what they've been experiencing and how they're willing, women are willing and wanting to stand up, and they have been for a long time, but it's always nice to kind of reignite that fire.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Elizabeth Sott has just got such an unapologetic way of kind of sticking up for herself, which I love, because I feel like even, I do think times have changed, but there are still many scenarios in which, you feel like suitably, unfortunately, your voice has to be quietened. And I just love that Elizabeth kind of she's just in a time in the 1960s where it was very, very rare for a woman to kind of stand up and go, well, quite frankly, fuck you. I'm going to do it this way. And I think it's amazing. Exactly. I honestly, her character was just so beautiful to read. So thank you so much for writing such a beautiful, inspiring woman in a time that it would have been very challenging.
Well,
for
it would
her.
have been all housewives and frilly pinnies and warming the husband's slippers by the fire.
Exactly right. So, that's when my mom was a mom. And when I said it then and I started researching I never appreciated what kind of limits she lived under. And then when I started researching it, I was outraged. I thought, oh, no wonder you were in a sort of a bad mood. But my mom was great, and my dad was great too, but it was that time when women were they were all average and their contributions were they were just dismissed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my mom, I'm of a similar ilk to you. So I was born in the early 60s, and my mom had my sister and me very young. She had both of us before she was 20. So I know. So she pretty much went from school to marriage, and she was amazing, but she had so few possibilities during the first years of our lives. Yeah.
So.
Oh, wow. Way to start it off nice and easy, isn't it?
we just like to kind of jump right in at the deep end.
No, but it is.
That's right.
It is such a journey, the power of women's voice and the power of women being able to step into roles that they once weren't before. I mean, even just multi-generational, like your mum, compared to some things, options that you've had that I've had, or even I see my cousins who are a lot younger than me that have a lot greater opportunities. Yeah. And like you said, Bonnie, it's not perfect, but I think we're definitely moving towards a better future. Let's hope.
Yeah, I think so. I think even if we aren't, we have to believe we are.
Yeah, exactly.
And, United States is having a lot of problems right now with women's, rights, and we seem to be going backwards a little bit. But there's been such an outcry about this that I think that in the end, women will prevail.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope so. Yeah, I certainly yeah. I think
Yeah.
I think we're all watching that debate very closely.
Yeah. Time for some change,
I am, for
guys.
sure.
Time for some change, please.
Yeah. That's right.
So on a sort of not
Lighter note.
So you wouldn't say you're a cook or a chemist, is that correct?
Isn't that embarrassing in some way? I mean, yes, I'm neither a chemist nor a cook, but as a copywriter, you always write new things all the time, new things that you don't understand. So writing something I didn't understand was just really what I do anyway. But chemistry was a little bit harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But I bought a textbook off of eBay for a few bucks. And it's a textbook from the 50s. And I taught myself, very basic chemistry, because my chemistry only goes to 1963. But it was really great to actually realize that I could do that.
Yeah.
And then, in terms of cooking, I knew that she had to be on TV, and I knew that she had to have a show. And the only things back then that women could do on TV were either to say behind door number 3, or to say, or say be a cook or some sort of housewife sort of role. So I knew I wanted her to be a cook because chemistry and cooking are completely intertwined. Yeah. But that meant also another area I'm not good at. And so I didn't research any cooking shows, which I know is bizarre, but thinking back now, someone just gave me an out recently when I was talking to them about this. They said, but see, if you'd watched those cooking shows, your show would have imitated those instead of being what it was. And I thought,
that's very true. Yeah, actually, that's very true.
That.
So where did you come up with the recipes? Did you find an old cookbook, or were they sort of just kind of things that you remembered from eating as a child? Or
Yeah, my mom, I remember my mom used to make this spinach casserole, and it was really good. My mom was a really excellent cook. And I never, all of my sisters, I have 3, are all excellent cooks. I'm the only one that didn't seem to get the message.
Oh,
what happened?
I don't know. She's allowed to not be a cook. We are talking the modern world now. It's fine.
Yeah, it definitely, it's skipped me. I don't know what happened.
You.
No. The brownie recipe is actually from my own family, and now it's been included in a recipe guide with the Reader's Guide.
Yeah.
And that is a recipe that we use in my own family. There was one night I'd had a really bad day at work, and this part came from real life, where I just came home and I said, I'm not making dinner. We're just having brownies for dinner. And everyone went, thank God. So we call those in our family, we call that recipe desperation brownies. And occasionally we do that.
Perfect.
That is a winning. I'm coming to your house tonight. I had quite the day today, so I am very desperate for some of those brownies.
Yeah.
It was right.
Anyway, yeah.
That's amazing. Wait, hold on. Before I have one question.
Sure.
How did you come up with the coffee being made like that?
Oh, okay. That took a lot of research.
Okay. I need to know. I'm a big coffee drinker. So how?
Okay. How? Okay. So I had to research the actual chemistry of coffee and understand exactly how all of her lab would work. And researching what a lab looked like in the 1950s was harder than I thought. But then I realized that she wouldn't be able to buy all this stuff. She wouldn't be able to afford it. So she had to make do with what she would have in her home or what she would find in a yard or whatever. But the actual process of making coffee was something that I had to go over and over and over. And luckily enough, one of my reviewers, I have 2 reviewers, both of who are PhDs in chemistry.
Right.
And when I wrote the first draft of that, I sent it to one of my reviewers and I said, what do you think? And she goes, God, I can't believe you wrote this. It's actually correct.
Oh, right.
And she said, yeah, that would, it would take out the tannins. It would take out all these, bitter tastes. What you've done is, you purified this and that. And I thought, oh, okay. All right.
That works.
So it stands the way it was written.
Wow. I want to try one of those coffees. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I want to try it too. I haven't done it. I did a lot of experiments. Not a lot. I did a few experiments at home, but that one I did not do. I don't have everything that Elizabeth Zott had. So, but I think it's possible. I mean, now everybody says it's possible. Other chemists have written in and said, yes, your process was correct. So,
right. So next time we get together, you're going to cook me brownies for
yes.
dinner and we're going to have a coffee. Yes?
Okay. You know what? That's perfect.
It's a date?
All right.
Deal. Great. I'll DM you what times I'm good for me.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
So I'm really intrigued about, you've talked about the cooking and chemistry, why you paired those two things together. And obviously you sort of said, well, Elizabeth was a scientist. She was a chemist, and you had to have the cooking in it for her in order for her to be on TV. But is there more to it than that?
Well, the other reason I wanted to put her on TV and have her, some people have said, why did you make Elizabeth Zott beautiful? And to me, that was just so obvious. I don't think it was obvious to other people. She wouldn't have been on TV if she hadn't been attractive. Not back then. There's no way.
Yeah.
But I wanted to have this tension between the fact that her father had been this kind of showman, and she had wanted the exact opposite for herself. And yet there she was on TV, pretty much preaching to her people that you are so capable, you're more than everyone says you are, and that you need to stand up for yourself. And so when I thought about combining these three things, her power, her chemistry, and her cooking, I thought, oh, this is a real catalyst. This is actually a chemical catalyst. And she becomes that catalyst for change.
Amazing. And I feel like I have to say on the thing about her looks and her beauty, I feel like not only did it play a role in her obviously being on TV too, but I also think it shows a way that I think sometimes if you're good looking or in her stance beautiful, particularly probably in the 1960s, men would probably even more so say that you couldn't be
assume
exactly
that
you would even being a receptionist would probably be like, not like you're too good for that. You should be a housewife. You should be making babies, blah, 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 blah. So I feel like it even served a deeper purpose in that, in a time that probably, yes, beauty does get you places, but also it can make things very difficult for you as well because people have stereotypes around that. So I think that
exactly. Yeah. No, I think you're exactly right. I think beauty is this double-edged sword. And especially for her, she wanted to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
And back then, if you were beautiful, you weren't taken seriously. You were like you were saying, you were just like this doll. Yeah. So that was another hurdle for her.
Yeah.
But I'm glad, because a few people have said, oh, I just wish she wasn't beautiful. And I said, well, that's not realistic. No. She wouldn't have been on TV. There's no way.
And that's just playing it. That is just playing to the stereotypes, isn't it? Is that she's a scientist, she's smart, therefore she must be plain or unattractive.
Yes, exactly.
Why can't she be beautiful?
Yeah.
Was it important for you, Bonnie, to play with stereotypes? Because I felt like you did play with them a lot, and I really enjoyed reading that. So why was that important to you?
Well, one of my big themes, I think, is that we assume a lot about people based on visual clues. And those clues can be incredibly misleading. So, for instance, with Calvin, everyone assumed that he'd come from a rich background and he had every advantage when just the opposite was true.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth, she was just judged on the way she looked, and therefore she was pretty and she was taking advantage of this man and trying to get ahead riding his coattails. But everybody in the book has this stereotype of Walter Pine has to be this tough guy at work, but he doesn't really like to do that. It's just who you are. So much of it comes from what people assume about you. And so this idea of underestimating people, arises from that. We do tend to kind of cut people off at a certain point, and even animals, we assume we know more than we should know, or more than we actually do know about things.
I feel like I even do that with my daughter sometimes.
I do.
Do you know what I mean?
I did
Like
my own dog.
Okay, when I'm with her all day, and then all of a sudden I see her from like a different perspective, and oh, geez, she's smarter than I thought. I'm gonna go. Really solving that problem.
She's almost 12 months old.
Oh my gosh, 12 months. Yeah, okay. Well, she better step it up.
Yeah, I know. I'm like looking at this, going 6:30, and you're like, how many words? 300. Step it up, sister.
Right. You should be reading Moby Dick to her by now.
Actually, I was getting some parenting tips there. Okay, alphabet lessons tomorrow.
Yeah, right. I know, no pressure.
No pressure at all.
So speaking of sort of like mothers and daughter and motherly figures, we love the combination of Harriet, Elizabeth, and Mad. That dynamic was just beautiful. Could you tell us a little bit more about that and why you wrote that dynamic the way you did?
Yeah. I wanted Harriet to be almost the opposite of Elizabeth Sod. She's in a horrible marriage. She's never known true love. She is, pretty much ruled by this horrible husband, which we never see him on screen, but we hear about him. And she's trapped in this marriage. She sees no way out. She sees no possibilities for herself. Then you pair her with Elizabeth Sod, who never underestimates anyone and doesn't understand why anyone would stand for what Harriet has stood for. And this conflict between the two becomes a deep friendship. And I wanted them to be able to find this common ground to support each other, because it's so important for women to understand that supporting each other is critical. So in the middle is Mad, and Elizabeth has some dangerous ways of raising her, and Harriet is there, the wiser one, saying, you've got to put away the knives. You can't let her play in the dryer. But the two of them combined are raising this little kid.
And that really resonated with me.
I'm Elizabeth. 100%. She is Harriet.
You can't do that.
I was going to ask, which one of you?
Elizabeth.
I'm Harriet.
I know I was a little bit free with my kids, I have to say. Not as free as Elizabeth, but I remember somebody coming over and saying, you can't let your kid paint on the wall. And I said, why not? But it's with a Sharpie, and that's permanent. That's and also it's poisonous. And I went, oh, well, she'll be all right. I mean, she tastes it, she won't ever use it again.
That's me.
Yeah. Anyway.
Mum gets horrified. We go, oh, Mum, you want to come to the park? I'm going to take people for a swing. I pushed her like super high, and Mum's like,
literally, so she's going backwards up over the bar.
I was like, Mum, think of gravity. She can't fall out. It doesn't work that way. She's moving too quick. She can't climb out.
Oh my God, I would love to see this in action. That's great. I mean, really, I think it's really great to raise your kid that way.
Is it great? I think I'm the odd one out.
I think it is great. No, I think it is great because I think something that I've certainly learnt from Catie, having become a mum, and I have some stepdaughters also who have become mums in the last few years, is that my knowledge is outdated. I mean, I'm a product of my time just as much, just as much as my mother was. So to a certain extent, you just have to kind of let go and just go, sure, okay, well, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Catie, you're lucky. You have a great mom. No, it is really true, though. I think Harriet had these very definite views of motherhood, and because that was the way that she did it, and Elizabeth was showing her, you can do a lot more with your kid. And I think Harriet was a little bit jealous in a way that Elizabeth and Mad were so close, and that Elizabeth was doing things differently, and they were succeeding. But yeah, I liked the three of them together. It was really fun to write right? Three of them, there's also different.
Would you say that Elizabeth maybe inspired Harriet a little bit?
Yeah, I think that she did. I think, I don't think that Harriet would have followed through at the end with what she did to help Elizabeth if she hadn't been inspired by Elizabeth, that you just don't stop. You just don't give up. And, as Harriet having to take her own advice that, she'd been parroting these magazines for years, but she finally had to take her own advice that she had been parroting. And that turned out to be what was needed for her to change her life.
Yeah. But Elizabeth equally relied on Harriet. And I think, that was a really important part of the equation, that it wasn't just the unfolding or the blossoming of Harriet.
Right.
She was also really essential there for Elizabeth and for Mad to have that sort of stability and dependence and total devotion.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite scenes with Harriet is when Harriet decides to take Mad to the set. She's not allowed to do that, but she breaks rules just like Elizabeth does, and she goes, "Yeah, we're going to go." And they both know that is taboo. So I liked how she would just go, "No, I'm going to do what I want to do too." But I think that Elizabeth really became dependent on Harriet, not just as a friend, but almost as a mother figure.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody who could fill in for what she hadn't had.
Yeah. And the other super important character in this book, 6:30.
I know. I think I was
for those of you that haven't read the book, 6:30 is a dog.
It's 6:30 is a dog.
It's
I'm sort of doing a little bit of research before talking to you. I read a few reviews, and most people go, "Yay, 6:30." But there were a few people like, "Nah, that's just a bit, just took it too far." That kind of didn't work. And I go, yes, it does.
Because they obviously haven't had a dog.
Yes, it does.
It's because they probably obviously haven't had a dog.
Obviously, maybe because
that's the obvious answer.
Obviously, they haven't had a dog. But were you? So when you were writing 6:30, what was your mindset? Were you aware that might be slightly contentious, or
Oh, I was completely aware. I didn't know 6:30 was even going to have a voice. I had never intended that when I was writing him. And then just suddenly he started commenting on things. I mean, literally, sometimes I feel like writing is a little bit beyond my control, which sounds bizarre, but it's true. And in fact, my agent really had a problem with 6:30. She felt like, no, this is going too far. But the more I got into him, the more I realized that in order to paint Elizabeth as a true scientist, scientists do not say, no, that can't be possible.
Yeah.
Because if they did, we would not have science.
Yeah, exactly.
Scientists are always questioning. So 10 years ago, we had no idea, and no one would have believed that trees talk to each other. But today we know that's a fact. And so if you don't have scientists out there going, well, what if? Then you don't have science. And so, yes, it turns out that dogs can learn a lot of language. And there's a very famous dog named Chaser, a border collie, who knew over 1,000 words. There are 2 dogs on TikTok who can read. So it is really astonishing to me that we continue to define intelligence only by human terms. We know this is how the brain works for us. We have no idea how the brain works for other animals. And it always astounds me that dogs in particular, they have a sense of smell, like a bloodhound's sense of smell is 100,000 times more sensitive than ours. The average dog is something like, 20,000 to 50,000 more sensitive than ours. If either of us, if one of the 3 of us had that, they would call that a superpower. But with dogs, we just dismiss it. And yet dogs are, finding bombs and finding whatever in airports. These are things that they're capable of doing that we are not capable of doing. I don't think we should be dismissing this.
No, and anyone that's had a dog knows that dogs understand human emotions. You know, that if you're sick or you're sad, then, you know, your dog will be right there.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, 6:30 is actually based on a dog I had.
Right.
Friday was her name. And Friday we underestimated her. We didn't believe that she knew all these words. And so she started demonstrating to us how much she knew. But my favorite example of her was one day I couldn't find my keys anywhere in the house and I had to get to work. And I said, oh my God, I can't find my keys. And she heard me and she immediately went and looked in all of the bags, you know, gym bag, purse, whatever, didn't find them. And then she went through my pockets and she found them and she dumped them on the floor. Like, could we go? Here they are. She went to work with me. So, I mean, and then we were transferred abroad to Switzerland and we realized after about a year that she was picking up German. So when we think that dogs don't really learn, well, I don't think we have any idea how much they can learn.
Yeah. Isn't that fascinating?
Wow. That's so amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fire out. Matt, I'm going to start alphabet lessons with Pippi tomorrow.
You mean you haven't started already?
No.
Tomorrow. Oh my God.
Am I getting a dog? Great. Brownies, chocolate, dog, alphabet. Thank you very much, Bonnie.
Okay. You're set.
Now, one of the other things we wanted to talk to you about is rowing. Because, you know, it features very heavily in the novel. And I don't actually remember, I certainly can't think of another novel that I've read where it does. We don't row, but I have family over in New Zealand and they are all huge rowers. My niece just won a gold medal in the nationals over there in a quad, which is fantastic.
Wow.
So yeah,
and Max who rows at Brown.
Well, exactly, and another friend has 2 children, and her oldest son, who's exactly the same age as Catie, got a rowing scholarship to Brown in the States.
Oh wow.
So anyway, that's enough about us. Those are our claims to fame rowing. So tell us about
sometimes
rowing.
we forget that we're interviewing you about your book.
Yeah, we actually just talk about ourselves.
I like you. Sorry.
No. I love hearing this. So keep going. I can just tell you that rowing, I was a rower. I still am kind of a rower, but I'm not rowing right now. So I feel like saying that is a little weird. Rowing stopped, of course, because of COVID, but now I'm just too busy, to row. But, I had to put something in the book that I actually had firsthand knowledge about.
Right.
So I put in rowing because I'm a rower, but also I wanted to use rowing as this counterbalance. Rowing is all about cooperation. In order to move the boat fast, you have to all row exactly the same, which is a lot harder than it thinks. So rowing is a very cooperative, a lot harder than it sounds. So rowing is very cooperative. It's this controlled power. When you have a very powerful people in a boat and they have to mimic each other, that is sort of an art. And the boats that move well that's why they move well, because those rowers are supporting the person in front of them. And it's a really beautiful sport. But I wanted to juxtapose it against Elizabeth's workplace, the normal workplace, where people are always kind of at odds with each other. They're not cooperating. They're not bending when they need to bend. They're not moving when they need to move. And so it's a question of balance. And, you know, I don't know about you, but I feel like the world is getting more and more imbalanced and more irrational. And so I wanted this one sport, and it's the only sport I can think of that does this, where there isn't one person who's more important in the boat. Everybody has a job in that boat. Every seat has a specific job, but they have to do their job in tandem with this person in front of them and behind them. And if they don't, then the boat doesn't win.
Yeah.
Period. The end.
For a couple of years when my children were younger, I did outrigger canoeing, which is exactly the same, where you've got six people in a boat and you're actually on opposite sides. And you have to be, those paddles have to hit at exactly the same time.
At the same time. Exactly. And the balance in an outrigger. Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, well, I like it.
And we'll talk about this in a little bit, because it's no great secret, congratulations, the book's been picked up by Apple TV, and it's
yay! Yeah, thank you.
So we'll kind of come back to that in a minute, because I wanted you to tell the erg story.
The erg story in the book?
No. From the TV production.
Oh, oh my gosh! So Brie Larson is starring. I mean, I'm thrilled. Brie Larson starring in this.
Is she?
But she has to learn how to.
Okay, hold on. Okay, before you tell the story. So
okay.
I saw, this is how much of a stalker I am. I saw that you reposted her holding your book, right? And I didn't quite link the dots at this point. Anyway, I was on her Instagram. Gee, she is a fit girl.
But she can't row.
Right. I was like, Brie Larson, she is just something else. For anyone who hasn't checked her out on Instagram, please go check her out on Instagram. She has something else.
But she can't row.
I know. Yes. So she has to learn how to row and erg. And she was so funny. She posted a video of herself erging on Instagram. She goes, I don't think I'm doing it right. And I'm like, no, you're not doing it right. And so I know that they've hired a coach for her, because rowing is very specific, and erging. So most people, if they see a rower, or what rowers always call it the erg, if they see an erg in a health club and they sit down and they do this sort of thing, it's wrong. And it will hurt your back if you continue to go down that road. Rowing, which most people don't know, is mostly legs. It's about 80% legs. So when you push off, you're using the big legs, your big muscles in your body to push away. And then your arms follow much more gently than people think. Anyway, so Brie Larson, is learning how to erg and row. And erging is not that much fun. So I think that it'll be I think that'll be the interesting part for her. She's a super athlete, though. I mean,
my gosh.
There was some video that one of my daughters saw of her pushing a car uphill. So
what?
I'm not concerned about her fitness.
Her she's literally she does like one-handed pull-ups, and she does like 5 of them.
Yeah.
She's a freak.
Yeah.
Like, she's I won't say freak. That's the wrong word, but she is extremely incredible.
Well, when she wanted to consider playing the role of Elizabeth Ott, she did an exclusive read so that she could, if she decided she wanted to do it, she would have exclusive rights to do it. And she was really nice. She called me on Zoom, and we had this great conversation. I was just, the whole time I was like, oh my God, it's Brie Larson. But she was so nice and so normal. And in the back, you could just see all of her equipment, for her training, which apparently is in her garage. And I just thought, God, how would I motivate myself to use all that stuff? The answer is her trainer lives next door.
Oh, right. There we go. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. So the lessons we have learned from Bonnie tonight are how to make an excellent coffee.
Yes.
That some days brownies are the perfect dinner. That if you want to be good at training,
you have to have a trainer next door.
Yes. Erging, you push from your legs, not from your arms. Do not continue it otherwise. And get yourself a dog, because they will find your keys. Thank you very much, Bonnie.
You're welcome.
Excellent lessons for this evening.
So I believe the TV series is actually being shot over the next few months, isn't it?
Yeah, they're starting in late July. And so we're just kind of waiting to see, Omicron has made a huge impact in LA recently. Right. And so I think they just have to kind of be flexible about this. And I'm just waiting to hear. So it's supposed to be shooting July to November, but that could change. And the air date would be next summer, 2023, July, August, maybe, depending on COVID. Yeah. COVID willing is what we always say now, right?
But that's so incredible. I mean, how did you feel, when you found out that they wanted to option it and go into production? Because that's so unusual with a novel that hadn't even been published yet. I mean, normally it's kind of published, and then if it gets popular, then they consider it. I mean, I'm sort of still in that dreamland. I mean, I couldn't believe it. We were in the British auction, then we were in the American auction. In the middle of the American auction, my lovely agent called me and she said, "Is this a bad time to tell you that there's interest from Hollywood?" And I thought she was kidding. I said, yeah, funny. And she goes, no, I'm serious. And I said, how would they have the novel? How is that possible? It's not published or anything. And she goes, well, Bonnie, it's called the internet. So sure enough, a lot of Hollywood people were interested. I think there were 35 option offers. Wow. But then suddenly I had a film agent and he narrowed that down to 8 different companies because he made it a must produce order. Because usually a book is optioned and then it sits there. 98% of books are optioned, never make it to the screen. So he wanted to make sure that this would be. And so 8 companies ended up bidding on it. And it was really exciting. But when Brie Larson attached herself to it, that really changed. That changed the whole flavor of the negotiations. And so I'm very lucky to be working with Aggregate Films in Hollywood. That's Michael Costigan and Jason Bateman's company. Wow. So that's pretty fun. Yeah. And then the screenwriter is Susanna Grant, who wrote Erin Brockovich, which is pretty great. Yeah. Plus there's another writer, Hannah Fidel, and a writer's room. So I'm not working on the script. I've got my hands full here, but I'm really excited to see what they've done.
Wow, that's amazing. Congratulations, Bonnie. And
thank you.
Thank you so much for chatting with us this evening. It has been an absolute delight.
And we loved
thank you. It's been fun.
Yeah, we just loved your book so much. And it deserves all the accolades and all the praise that
thank you.
On the glowing reviews and and if you haven't read it, read it.
Read it and buy 2 copies.
Exactly.
Well, thank you guys. This has been such a fun podcast. It's just been wonderful. So thank you.
Well, thank you. We've had a blast.
Okay. Thanks so much, Bonnie. See you later. Have a good
day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
That was so much fun. Bonnie, you are an absolute delight to talk to. We had so much fun talking to you.
Yeah.
And congratulations again on all of your success. We are just so thrilled to have had you on our episode and have read your book for book club. So moving on next, what is our book for June?
Okay, so it's an Australian book, and it is called Black River by Matthew Spencer. And this one is a thriller, a crime novel. And it's very good. I sat down on another one of these rainy days and I did not get up until I finished reading it. Wow. It was so good. Yeah. So you're going to love it.
Okay.
It is set in Sydney and basically along the Parramatta River. And the main character is a journalist, and there may be a serial killer involved and a few dead bodies turning up.
All right, guys, buckle in. We're in for a ride.
Absolutely.
Amazing, everybody. So thank you so much for joining us on the couch today and joining another episode of Both Sides Book Club. We, as always, are so privileged and lucky to have you in our club. We love you all and we are excited to chat to you next month.
Happy reading. We hope you enjoyed watching this episode.
If you did,
please leave us a comment below. We'll see you soon.